Mayhem is a bit more difficult than your average mod, but you can make your first playthrough as easy as you like, really. A lot is customizable. Once you have installed the game, go to your main game folder and then the add-on folder. And here you will find the T folder. And inside there is the ominous T file that is mentioned all the time. It's the 9972-L044.xml. Open that up. I'm going to use a fresh copy because I have already edited some values here. You always get this file when a new Mayhem patch rolls in, so never forget to note what changes you do here and then reapply them when a patch comes. So that is how this file looks. These are all the options that you have. And the actual option is always in between these two inward pointing arrows here. And what this option does is descripted in the back. And you also got the default value if you need to revert that. And I'm going to give you a quick rundown about the most useful options and how you can make your first game a whole lot easier and more forgiving. The first setting that you can adjust is the Xenon spawn delay. So the Xenon will raid the galaxy with patrols, and this setting here controls how long they take to respawn those patrols. So if you want to reduce the density of the Xenon in the game a bit, then you can increase that. I wouldn't double that, but maybe increase it up to 5,000 seconds or something. You have small patrols and big invasions. If you fear that a big invasion is going to overwhelm you, maybe then increase that a bit. For example, 18,000. But the Xenon are usually not that much of a problem for the player. You can also leave that at the default values. More important are the pirates. You got a spawn delay for pirates. Pirates will spawn at pirate bases in a frequent interval, and that gets controlled with this setting here. So if you want a few less pirates, then I would reduce the pirate limit here. That line here controls the maximum amount of pirates that can be in the whole galaxy. And if you're playing on a smaller map, you may want to reduce that, or if you want lower pirate spawning overall. So maybe go down to something like 35. The default is 50. Then you could also reduce the spawn delay a bit. Increase the spawn delay so that you have a lower respawn rate. So maybe go up to 1,300 or something. You could reduce the maximum number of pirate bases, but I wouldn't do that. If you adjust the spawn delay and the maximum number, then that is already an effective nerf for them. Then you have an option to disable that the pirates will scale to the player's empire size. So usually you get some extra pirates spawning when you have more sectors. So they get more dangerous over time as long as you don't take them out and destroy their bases. And if you would disable that, so switch that from 1 to 0, then the amount of pirates will always be fixed. And they don't get stronger as you, as the player, grow with your empire. But I actually like that, so you may want to play with that. If you reduce the pirate spawning, then they are much less of a trouble. So actually keep that on. Keep in mind that you also make your life as a bounty hunter harder if you reduce the pirate amount in the galaxy, because you can also earn money from hunting them. And that, of course, will be less possible. The next setting I would adjust is the total project size needed to increase station specialization. That is basically like a level up mechanic for your outpost. The outposts are your basic stations. They build everything from your ships to your weapons and shields, and also other stations like factories. and they will get better over time. And maybe you're familiar with Hearts of Iron. There you also got some production bonus when your factories were producing a certain type of tank or plane. Then your workers got more experienced, and you have a similar setting in Mayhem. So if you build stations, that outpost will get better building stations over time. And that makes that go faster and also consume less resources. And on default, you need very long to level that up. I really don't know why it's so high, because station project size is not that big to begin with. So I would reduce that, maybe cut it in half from 100k down to a 50k. And then your station production will level up faster, and you don't need to build hundreds of stations to get a notable effect from that. Then we have maintenance. Maintenance is usually a big problem for new players. It basically means that you have to pay upkeep for your ships. And this has two components. For one, you have a base cost, and then you have an increase over time. So at each maintenance cycle, you have to pay the base cost, and then also all your ships which are currently in space will get more expensive by 1%. Their maintenance will increase the longer they live. And this can be a bit unpredictable for new players. So you may want, if you really hate the idea of having to pay upkeep for your ships and think this feature will ruin your fun in the game, then you can just disable maintenance by setting the base cost to 0. That would completely disable that feature, and you can play like original, get all the ships you want, and just play a relaxed game. But I think the maintenance is a critical part of Mayhem, and you should play with it, but maybe tone the increase over time down a bit. And you can do that by adjusting the maintenance cycle. So on default, you're paying maintenance every 600 seconds, and that is 10 minutes. And then you're paying 100% of the base cost. And then it gets 1% more expensive, and the next 10 minutes you will pay 101% for each ship which was in space at that time. So if you increase the maintenance cycle, for example, up to an hour, which is 3,600 seconds, then you're only paying maintenance once per hour. And you also get the increase over time only once per hour. So it will be 6 times slower and much more predictable. And of course, you also have to up the base cost by 6 so that it matches the old cost. And what that would do would basically only make the increase over time much less pronounced and easier. If you think maintenance is too harsh, then you can also reduce that. So maybe don't multiply the base cost by 6 like you did with the cycle, but only by 4, so that you have 400% base cost, and you're paying that over 6 times longer cycle. Then you can also disable maintenance for your personal ship. So if you like piloting a Corvette, a bigger ship early in the game, but you don't have the money to pay for that ship, then you can disable maintenance by setting this to 1. And that will make your personal ship that you're currently piloting free. We have another setting here. These are the maximum perks for your outpost. The default is 3, and that is actually a really good setting. But in the beginning, when you're not very familiar with what perks are available and what are good, and you want to experiment a bit, then you can also increase that, because early game you will be very limited with your perks. These are like special features that you can unlock for your outpost. And there are some which are critical and some which are very helpful in the early game, and you usually got a small conflict going on and you don't really know what you need to unlock. So I would increase the perks on your outposts by 1 if you're just starting out. And if you really want to experiment, you can also take this up to 5 or something. But then the game will be a bit too easy, I think, because then you don't have to make many compromises at all. And that is the whole fun in Mayhem, to make compromises and overcome challenges. Then we have reputation penalties. When you are claiming sectors, then you are losing reputation with neighboring factions. And these lines here control how much that will be. So you need to earn a bit of reputation before you grow your empire. And that can put some players off. And you can adjust that by reducing this here. So on average, you're losing 500 reputation when you conquer any sector. Then any neighbor will hate you for that. And you can disable that by setting it to 0 or reduce that. I would only reduce that, to be honest. So maybe cut it down in half, only minus 250. And then you also have a reputation modifier when you are claiming a sector, really invading it, so destroying stations from its owner and then claiming the sector for yourself. That of course pisses them off more, and I would leave that. What else do we have? We have mission credit reward. That can be useful for the early game because the missions, they don't pay really well. You don't need that much money, and you also, if you're reducing maintenance, then you also don't need that much money. But I would still up these mission rewards and double them if you want an easy game. The reputation rewards can also be doubled, so set that to 200. Then we have something similar for taxi missions, so you can transport passengers, and that is usually a good way to earn reputation, not so much for earning money, so you can up the credit reward, double that. I wouldn't touch the reputation reward for taxi missions because that is already very good in my opinion. Maybe increase it slightly, but I would not double that. It would make it too easy. Then we have the bounty that gets added to ships when they kill a civilian freighter. That is a good way to earn money in the early game by hunting pirates. But if you reduce the amount of pirates, you should up this bounty to make it more profitable. And also, if you want to generally have a more forgiving monetary game, then you should also increase that a lot. So for example, tripling it to 15,000 per kill, and that will enable you to do a much more profitable bounty hunting. And then we have the high research cost. That is the last thing that I would change, if you like. You are unlocking new ships in Mayhem by mostly by researching them once you have a research station. And the game gives random ships a higher cost to research. So it's going to take longer. And that is to encourage you to use different ships and play with different fleets between different games and try new things and stuff like that. But if you really have favorite ships designs that you definitely want to use and don't want to be forced to use certain other ships, then you can disable this high research cost that gets randomly distributed to some ships in the game. The standard setting is 20%, so each ship in the game has a risk of 20% to be very expensive to research. And if you want to disable that, you can just set this to 0, and then you can always research the ships you like if you have certain special designs. So for example, you only want to use split ships, and no split ship should be more expensive to unlock, then you can set this to 0. And that is basically it. This will make your game much more forgiving and much easier to get into.